Welcome to Automation Hunter, the podcast for entrepreneurs and businesses ready to scale smarter. In this series, Apps, Hacks, and Bounties, your host, Will Christensen, dives into game-changing tools and strategies alongside special guests, sharing insights to boost productivity and solve real business challenges. Ready to innovate? Let's dive in.
So, Mark Botha from SellerVue. Mark, welcome to the show and excited to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you. Well, good to be here.
Mark, tell us who you are in the world. How do you? I like to say follow the money. Like, how do you make money? And where are you in business?
So so how do I make money? Well, I actually help sellers find more money in their account so that they can profit more. We do that through our own kind of precise methods and methods that I actually uncovered when I was building and selling my own e-commerce stores. And ultimately, my goal in life was to build e-commerce stores and sell them. But I realized when I was selling my ones that there's a lot of money getting left on the table during the sale process. So, we help sellers, make sure that they're getting max valuations and max money out of their sale.
Nice. I love it. Okay. Tell me about a hack. Excuse me. We're going to go apps first. Tell me about an app that you've used in the last year that you feel like's really upscaled your productivity.
So for our team, actually, just recently used Dext, D-E-X-T. It's a document management tool.
Okay.
Super, very slick in terms of how it works and capturing the data and also storing your data that will eventually help you in your sale process when you do sell. I know not a lot of sellers selling isn't on their radar, but what I always tell my clients is that if you're thinking about a sale, that means you're profit focused. And if you're profit focused, you're going to profit more now so that you can scale more profitably with the end result of one day selling. Because if we're keeping more money than we are right now, we have a lot more room to grow because we can source more products, we can spend more on PPC. So that's our philosophy.
So is Dext? So I just did a quick search for Dext and I found one. It's like dext.com, dext.com.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it? Okay, cool. And so, wait a second. Does that say? Oh, okay. It says by IRIS, and I thought that said IRS. I was like, wait a minute, the IRS put this out? Not quite.
But actually pretty smart.
Yeah, it would be, right? So tell me, this looks more like an accounting tool than anything else to me. Help me understand. You called it a document management tool. Why?
Yeah, it's a document management tool. So you can email in your documents. So you email in your receipts, your cost of goods sold, your shipping bills, your customs bills, whatever the documents that you want to store in your business. Like obviously a lot. It's interesting where a lot of our clients, and I know, is your supplier emails you something, you get your freight forwarder emails you something, and everything is basically living in your inbox in a completely disorganized way. Where this kind of frees it up, where you can actually just email these documents in, it stores the documents, it makes it easily searchable. So that if you're looking for a past invoice on whatever it might be, it's in here.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's that's one of the things that we found as well is when we're looking at due diligence and making that whole process easier. It's the clients that have
e-commerce too. Interesting.
Yeah. It's the clients that have the documents on hand, readily available, easy accessible, everything's connected.
I bet they get like 10, 15% more for the business.
100%. Also,
it's that
you
easy.
sleep better at night.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Dext,
Yeah.
That's a great hack. Or excuse me, I'd call that a hack and an app. Any hacks you want to share?
Okay. So this one, because what we do is we go back. So we get a lot of referrals from brokers. So someone like, hey, this guy's selling. We need a valuation tomorrow. Well, when I mean tomorrow, I mean ASAP.
Yeah.
Like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. They do say tomorrow. I've heard tomorrow.
Can you find any money? Can you go check their supply chain and see, is the unit cost that the seller is saying, is that the unit cost? Because oftentimes, unit costs aren't changed, right? So if I'm a seller, was a seller, my accountant says, hey, I need the unit cost for the end of the month. First email, typically ignore. And then you get another email like, hey, I really need these costs. And then you're like, do some magical math and be like, all right, these are them. I'm gonna get back to driving revenue, and you don't pay attention, right? So what ends up happening there is, the variables that happen on your order cycle, right? One order cycle cost might be $339. Next one, $323.
Oh,
next one, $341.
The cost of goods sold changing over time is such a pain in the butt. So
exactly.
100%.
So it's from a seller side, Mr. Accountant, that's my number, go do your thing. But from, accurate side, for example, we had a client, she said, all right, my cost is 339. I'm like, okay, no problem. We'll go through, find out. And we found out the variances throughout her order cycle over 12 months was actually 321, right?
Wow.
So an 18-cent difference, which, 18 cents, not a big deal, right? But 18 cents times 22,000 units she sold, it's $4,000 times the 45 SKUs she had, ended up being like $97,000 that,
Holy crap.
That was,
that's going to change some profitability of the business.
Exactly. So kind of coming back to the hack, when you get invoices from a supplier, right, on the item list, it might say, some arbitrary, obscure number. Then when you take it to, say, like Amazon, you've called it something entirely different, and your SKU is entirely different.
Oh
right?
my gosh!
It's like, because we get clients all the time, and I'm like, so I have no idea what this means.
So what do you do to correlate them? I'm guessing that's the hack.
This is the hack. This is the most amazing hack that I'm, I just did it the other day because I was like, I don't know what to do here, because this one client had like, I don't know, 250 SKUs, 200 different line items. So I went ChatGPT. I said, all right, this is the list of items from, let's just call it Alibaba, And this is the descriptions that
from the invoice
the client has.
Or no, from the listings. The listings say this. Alibaba says this.
Yes, and this is the SKU. This is the list of SKUs. I was like, do your best to match them. Magic, fireworks happening, and match them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
this is actually fascinating. I'm going to throw out a hack as well. I'm actually going to toss out almost a bounty here. Did you use the deep research function? Did you click
Yes.
You did.
Yeah,
okay, good.
yeah.
And so for those of you who are watching who don't know what deep research is, this sucker literally takes like 10 minutes to go through and search. And it does basically Google searches on the different items of information that are there. And it can process a lot of info, just like what Mark was saying. And so each one of those matches is as if you as a human being went in and searched for both items and started to look at the items on that page. And I actually think it's even better than a human, because a human can't take in a full page of context, like a full page of like, okay, I'm going to store that in RAM and compare these two. But a computer can compare 2 pages of text like that. And so like lots of opportunity for amazingness there. So how did it do?
Oh, it was awesome. So basically took that, saved, I don't know, a week of work, plugged that into our tool, because we use Dext, because obviously Dext doesn't do that. It captures a document. It's stores a document, saves a document. It's great for accountants. You can match it to zero. Everything's like everything, your T's are all crossed. But then it's like the sub information, like, the item on the invoice, how did that,
what was the unit cost on that sucker? So we can then go upload COGS and switch that.
Yeah, exactly.
So at SellerVue, do you guys have like a platform or a tool that people use to keep track of some of that cost of goods sold?
Yeah, we have a platform sellers can use where, it's actually pretty simple. So there's 2 things that we do, right? So we've got the tool, sellers can use it. They create a purchase order, send that off to the supplier. The supplier sends the invoice back. You can match the purchase order to the invoice. You can then also create an order deck where your products are in order and create shipment plans, send off that to a freight forwarder, get quotes for that. And then when you finally get the shipping invoice, you pair it to the pack list, and it automatically captures your shipping costs, right? Because what ends up happening with a lot of sellers, right, is when we're looking at costs, we think about a container, and the container, let's say for argument's sake, costs $10,000, and you have 10,000 units in the container. The path of least resistance is, okay, it's $1 a unit, right?
Yeah.
Because, but the way we do it is we basically take the cubic meters of the cartons in your container, and base off the size of the cartons and how much space it takes in the carton, in the container. That's how we calculate it. Because if we're thinking about like a container, and this is actually how I came up with this, because one of the businesses I sold had basically had 1,000 units in the size of a shoebox.
Oh my gosh.
In a container. And those cost actually, it was like 1 cent to ship those up, pump them in the container. It was,
Wow.
A nominal cost. But, if you're not doing it properly, I would have probably allocated $1 to each of those, right?
Yep.
Which would completely skew the profit metric, which would have, again, skewed off the, the valuation.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I love that. So let's move on to the last part of our episode here. Mark, tell me if you evaluate SellerVue as a business, and it sounds like you guys are kind of a SWAS, so I call that like a software-enabled service company. Sounds like you do some software with what you're doing, but you also have some like services that you provide. Tell me a little bit more about the business. Where do you feel like it's bottlenecked? So the theory of constraints, and this is from a book called The Goal, says that there can only be one bottleneck in a complex system, and a business is a complex system. So leads come in, you close those leads stay with you, they eventually fall off or whatever else is there. So that's kind of like the funnel. Where would you say is the biggest bottleneck in your business right now? What's your
in SellerVue? Automation.
Automation. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some things inside the business that you feel like you could automate a lot more.
Yeah. So that's where we are right now is, because, like I would say my passion, right, is helping sellers looking to sell. Like if you're looking to sell right now, we can definitely help you. But if you're looking to sell in 12 to 24 months, like we can really help you. And our first process is, okay, we need to know exactly where you are right now so we can make that better over the next 12 months. So our process is, you give us 12 to 24 months of your data, of your supply chain data. So invoices, factories, pack lists, shipping, customs, duties, everything that it costs you to get your product, all those documents, and then we feed them into our tool and we get a historical cost analysis. And then from there, we go, okay, if you're selling in the next 12 months, we're like, all right, well, let's see if we can negotiate better factory terms, get better pricing, how are we shipping products? Can we get better rates? I know the biggest hot, top buzzword is tariffs. There's no really getting there's a tariff's a tariff. If you have to pay it, you have to pay it. Just make sure that you're profitable. All right. And also make sure the tariff is the right tariff. And you're not overspending on a tariff where, you're getting told it's a 16% tariff when it could be a 10% tariff. Or, there are cases where it could be a free tariff, even nowadays. It's how you're packaging things, there's wild things that you can do in the tariffs to make your tariffs free. But yeah, so I would say a bottleneck is how do we automate data in a way that's efficient and accurate? Because again, the sake of automation, you don't want to sacrifice accuracy.
Gotcha. So tell me, which piece of data are you trying to automate most? So by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but you're talking to a Zapier certified OG expert. So like I've got over 1,000 hours on Zapier, many hundreds of hours on other automation platforms. Like I know how to automate crap. I actually pioneered a framework called Automate, Delegate, Eliminate. So you're talking to an expert here. Tell me what's the biggest, like, you're like, man, I just wish that this part of the process could be automated, but I'm not confident that I can do it in a way that doesn't eliminate errors.
Well, I think we're almost there. I figured out like the roadmap on the development cycle.
Cool.
I mean, I guess we're essentially going to clone. We're going to probably integrate with ChatGPT, because the thing that we did, that we do, like for example, one client, I don't know, he had 250 invoices that we had to split from Alibaba. And on that invoice was four line items of different items, the product, the quantities, and then there was shipping, and then there was the processing fees. So what we did in that example was we basically took those invoices, put them into ChatGPT, and said, hey, split and assign these costs, allocate the shipping cost associated with each SKU, allocate the processing fee with the SKU, so that there was it was allocated correctly. It wasn't just like for like. And then did it in a split second.
Nice.
So we're going to kind of mirror that inside our app, where you'll be able to. We're going to.
So you mentioned this being the biggest bottleneck.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've got a solution that you're kind of moving towards with ChatGPT, which is exciting. Where's the other biggest part of the challenge?
Just waiting for it to get done, because in the meantime, we're still it's still a manual process, right? So until that's done, it obviously remains the bottleneck.
Got it. And most of the time, this is happening currently. Someone's having to do it manually, is what you're saying. Is someone's
my team will go through, like a new client. Our process is use Dext. Send all your documents around your supply chain into Dext.
Yep.
Everything's in there. We're all right. Is this everything from the last 12 to 24 months? Okay, great. Then we will go through and start extracting the line items.
And how are you extracting those line items? Is it like does Dext actually put those into a CSV for you, or what's the process?
No, Dext doesn't do that. It's more of a manual process that you would have to do. Again, this is something
that's where you're you're going to say, I'm going to feed that document into ChatGPT via API and let it extract the line items.
Yeah. Again, like this is stuff where if you're a seller and you're going through your daily life, and you aren't kind of thinking about this stuff because, sellers are so hyper focused on revenue, right? Like, like more products, more PPC, more this, more that. We aren't necessarily focused on like the profit side of things. It really only comes to light when you have that moment where you're like, all right, I'm gonna sell my business. You go to your broker and your broker goes, okay, this is what I need from you. I need a detailed information on your SKU. I need to know transit times, production times, landed costs, inbound costs, total costs, stock values, all these different things. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's a lot of information I need to gather. Okay. So that's where kind of we come in, is we kind of bridge that gap where we just basically take that off your hand for you.
What does, and you're currently going to have your team build this, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, currently in dev, yeah.
In dev, okay. And how long do you think the dev cycle will be?
Good question. I mean, I wouldn't say too long, probably 3-4 months.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And in the meantime, during those 3 or 4 months, you're planning to just continue to have your team do it manually. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because there's not really another option. I'm going to actually give you another option. So there's 2 different applications, honestly, like 3 or 4 different applications. I'm going to open up Zapier real quick here, and we're going to wrap this up in about 5 minutes. So, okay. So Zapier has all sorts of interesting things. This specifically, I wanted to see if Dext is in here. Yep. Okay. So if we scroll down to the bottom, we can see what is actually available inside Zapier already. And so these are the triggers. So export receipts when ready. And looks like I can archive a receipt. I even have a client filter. I can export new process data. So this takes out all the chosen fields. So I think there's an opportunity here for you, because you could go in and test what data is coming out of these.
Okay.
And then the second step in Zapier can literally be either Zapier's AI or ChatGPT to then push that into a Google Sheet.
Right. Okay.
So for a couple of pennies per invoice, it's like 0.5 cents or something like that per action. It may be even less. I would be willing to bet that you could have a process built on something like Zapier, and the other one it's on my list to really dig into. It's called Lindy. This guy is basically Zapier, but it is built with AI first. So Zapier is catching up to what Lindy's doing, and honestly, I think they'll probably overtake them in the long term. I think Lindy's always going to have a spot. Honestly, I think Lindy will probably get bought by Zapier at some point. Because what Lindy does is it has the same idea of like lead submits form. So instead of lead submits form, it would be, something coming in from Dext, and then it would perform research on. See how it says perform research on the lead. So you could be like, match this SKU, right? Like exactly that thing that you fed in with the deep research. It can do that automatically. So you don't have to actually be in a ChatGPT window to gain access to that, and you can do that with no code.
Well, okay.
So
I like it.
I would recommend taking, and if you'd like to do, like I do a 15-minute, this is anybody's listening to this podcast, I do a 15-minute like free automation audit for a process like this. And basically we diagram the process and pick it apart, and I show you how to get it started. And at the end of that call, you're, farther along in your journey of trying to automate something. And if there's an opportunity where I think I might be able to help, or someone in my network will be able to help, I'll refer you out and help you connect those dots. So if that's something that's interesting, didn't think that during the podcast today, this would come up, but you mentioned automation and I leaned in.
I know. I like it.
Because
where do I schedule my 15-minute call?
Cool. Well, we will shoot you an invite. So this is actually, here's another hack or automation I'll share as we trail off this episode. I have a bot that's sitting inside this call right now. And this bot is called Fathom Note Taker. And it is currently taking notes on every single word we say. At the end of the call, it's going to generate a to-do list. And the to-do list is going to say things like, send Mark a 15-minute audit invite, like or times. That to do gets pushed into ClickUp via Zapier. My assistant watches that every single day and actions on it. So I no longer have to keep track of meeting notes or meeting to-dos. And it's about 80 to 90% accurate. If I've got a mission critical, like somebody says, hey, send me the proposal and I'll take care of that, I still send that to my assistant, like manually, even though it probably will get picked up by the bot. But I now have, like, for $20 a month, Fathom Note Taker sits in all my calls and keeps track of to-dos.
That's awesome.
So, Mark, it was a pleasure. Looking forward to our 15-minute call here in the future to dig into this, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, take care, man. Have a good one.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Over and out for our episode of Automation Hunter.
I appreciate it.